you go.
I'm already recording everything.
Okay, we'll just go from the
You can
top.
do whatever you like.
Okay. Thank you.
You see, one of Biber's specialities are the graphic scores and half graphic representations. Do you think it's underneath there?
Here it is. It's just got mixed up with some other bits of score. It's in there somewhere.
Do you want me to pull it out?
I mean, just for your interest, here's another one of the big scores, which was written for a big band in Vancouver. It's called Witch Gone Game 210. So one of the great joys I have is to get back on the drawing board and work out the modules of sounds which I want to give to the orchestra, using the words and symbols. These symbols are from the painter Alan Davey, and so I find it interesting to work out musical strategies as well as graphic realizations of them. In a way, we start with the idea of a painting, the painting is deconstructed, and that then moves into another, comes back as a graphic score. So you not only do you have the music, but then you also have another graphic representation of the painting.
The first page.
So this was the first page of Ceremony. And these are the scordatures here and here, with different articulations. Each occasion this arrives, it's the same scordatures, but they have these different articulations. 7 tracks here. We've got 7-track tape, so it is all pre-recorded.
That was my commission. I wanted a 7 because 7 is my favorite number, so I wanted 7 pre-recorded tracks.
And here
and this
you've got
is
this.
the poem. It's based on that poem.
This is a Navajo Indian poem. With beauty I walk impervious to pain. I walk feeling light within. I walk with lively feelings. I walk with beauty before me. I walk with beauty behind me. I walk with beauty below me. I walk with beauty above me. I walk. And the whole idea is that this kind of repetition is expressed in the music by the scordatures that continually change articulation and give and release a new section of music.
And this is just a representation of the acoustics you had in mind. One is the Wigmore Hall, isn't it?
One's Wigmore Hall, one is the Basilique da Fano in Italy. So it was just, really this little graphic here suggests that it can be done in a small concert hall, or it can be done in his basilique in a church. So the idea is that you get this generous acoustic. Yeah. So that's, well, I started purely as an instrumentalist at school. The school was well known for its big so-called military band or brass band, but it had drums and clarinets and things in it. And basically all the boys that played in the band were encouraged to try different instruments out. And I started fairly high up on the trumpet and I ended up on the bass. So my journey was downwards. The offshoot from this band was a way of 4 schoolboys earning some money. So we did gigs in pubs for young lads way below age, which you're allowed to drink alcohol, but we would have beers and accompany bad singers in pubs, but we got £4 a night. And a new guy joined the band who was interested in composition, introduced me to composition classes. There were evening classes that I did additionally to the school. And I got very interested then in not only contemporary music, but started to learn about, oh my goodness, there's people called Beethoven or there's somebody called Mozart. And so, as well as Stockhausen, as well as Lutoslawski, etc. So that's where this sort of rather generous, open musical education started. And after music college, I joined an architects for 3 years, terminated that, went to music college, and this is when all the gates just opened, and I was faced with a whole history of music, which up until that point I was fairly naive. And so composition seemed to be next on the list, actually, because once I started hearing these sounds, it all seemed to be, for me, it seemed to be appropriate to pull it all together and see what would come out the other end.
But you were already an improviser,
That's right.
as well as starting to become a composer, which I think is quite interesting, because other people come, well, including me, I mean, I'm not the composer, but normally you come through, you start with Handel and Telemann or even earlier, then you go classical music, romantic music, but you, to a degree, discovered things from the improvisation and then Lutoslavsky and Penderecki and Stravinsky were almost came in your case before Telemann or Bach or or even Beethoven. So it's very interesting when you discover backwards. For me, it's one of the reasons why you are so lateral in your ideas. Each time you make a composition, it's almost, what do you say in English? You like inventing the wheel again.
Reinventing the wheel, yes.
When Barry composes, it's not the sort of instant recognizable, this is this style, this is Barry guy. It's always as if he's inventing from scratch again, which is fantastic, and I love that particularly. It also means that you're quite a slow composer because you always have to do so much research, either text or architectural, or so much research before you even put the first note down.
That's right.
But that gives for me the depth of the pieces because they are grounded in incredible amount of experiences before you even start thinking about music and.
Yes, poetry, architecture, paintings are the sort of source material for any of these pieces. And so it was, I mean, even in the ceremony piece, for instance, this idea of walking and having the ground changing under you, and this was Cornelia, wasn't it? Cornelia von...
Ostershausen, no. Anyway, she was an artist and she had this installation, and basically it was a gigantic spiral in a I think it was one of those big gallery rooms. It was only that installation, and it was a gigantic spiral which was laid out on the floor, and it consisted, you had to take your shoes off when you were walking in with your socks, and it consisted of part of it was stones, then dry leaves, wood chips, sand, grass bits, and you were just supposed to walk this spiral and almost with your eyes closed and just feel underfoot how the texture changed. And
this was really the source material for these,
so it was an art
transformations. It's a very simple idea, but you start off with a particular sound area which is then transformed gradually, just like the ground underneath you. And the idea was that this was as with the poem, everything with beauty I walk, impervious to pain I walk. It's the walking experience, it's the moving experience, hence the word ceremony, because at the very end, all of these things come together to give a kind of what I call the ceremonial, where you're almost drifting through time.
But I also walk within the performance.
That's right.
And people love the moment when you get close, when they suddenly hear the violin next to their ear. So that was also sparked off by ceremony.
So what I spend quite a lot of time doing is sitting at the drawing board, working out how to slot all these pieces of music in a way that gives confidence to the musicians or the players that are going to interpret this material, to make it easy to traverse from one end to the other, and but have some clarity as well.
That's the Hilliard piece.
Here's the Hilliard.
Whole piece, which is about 10 minutes.
Yeah, this is right.
And it really is just, there's no other information. This is it. This is the piece, which is on that Hilliard songbook.
Yeah, and the layout of this actually is derived from some architectural models. One being from the Richard Rogers partnership. There was a building which was projected in Tokyo but was never actually built. But it consisted of modules that could move, or floors that could move, and it was it was going to be an exhibition centre. So, but the original model for the building was like a crane gantry. In a way, that started connecting with me with moving modules, with a structural gantry basically holding up the building. And the other aspect of this was a work which was destined for Berlin by Peter Eisenman, and it was the Max Reinhardt house. The idea was a crystalline structure that kind of in a Möbius loop way turned back on itself, back to the ground. So it emerged from the ground, turned and went back into the ground again.
It's almost what you do here.
So this is almost representative of the gantry and the modules turning or moving. And this is also representative of the crystalline structures, that when the crystal turns around, you get other information on a new face of the crystal. And with a poem on Coup today from Mallarmé, I did let's say a reduction using the uppercase aspect of parts of this poem, ignoring the lowercase thing, and almost made another story out of the uppercase words, and coup de dé, je mets sur le maître, ne parlera comme ça, etc., etc. So this actually provided the words for the Hilliard ensemble to sing.
But it was interesting that two of them didn't like improvisation at all, really.
That's right.
And two of them were very keen to improvise. So, and because this is quite a free piece and it demands a certain degree of improvisation and freedom, and it just was quite a challenge for them, wasn't it?
Yes.
Because they definitely, and it ended up on the album like that. They, in my opinion, I mean, I've heard it several times, and they definitely played it so much freer when you played with them. And Barry was standing behind them. Actually, it was complete coincidence that he had the bass in the car when we went to the recording.
That's right. Yeah.
And they said, you know, bring the bass in and let's do one or two versions with the bass. And I never get the feeling when I saw them, you know, when they were singing with you behind them, and basically your bass improvisation touched, you know, they almost vibrated in their bodies. And they just freed up. It was stunning, wasn't it?
It's slightly
and that ended up on the CD.
Yes, it's slightly ironic, but this is the Hilliard songbook, and it starts. The first sound you hear on the album is a double bass thrashing away.
Because Manfred put it at the beginning of the album, didn't it?
Yeah, the bass was in the car. We did a rehearsal, went to the pub, had a couple of pints, and they said, "Okay, let's do the recording." They said, "Bring your bass in." And I said, "Well, okay, let's try a version. I'll stand behind you. You guys sing. Let's see what we get up to." And so I improvised the whole, all my section, or my notes.
What you wanted.
Whatever I wanted, and they seemed to find it rather fascinating. So we did have a version without the bass, but it said that but the bass version ended up on the album. We had both played Baroque music, we had played in period instrument orchestras, so we were obviously acquainted with old music and the practice of playing old music. But additionally, because of my jazz, improvised music background and composing background, it wasn't such a great jump from including the types of sound, the types of articulation, the rhetoric of old music within a modern context. But to have the Baroque violin express itself in a kind of a contemporary idiom was really refreshing, because it was, the instrument is so much, the stringing is lighter, it's under less tension, but it has amazingly sort of beautiful mellow sound, and harmonics and notes just ring out of the instrument. And I think this, for me, was really, it set my creative juices going, you know, having an opportunity to write for the instrument, respecting what it can do and appreciating what it can't do. It's not a modern violin, so you mustn't stress it too much in the composition, from the compositional side. But what it meant was that overall I was given a new color palette to work with as a composer.
But also, I mean, I think it's very, very obvious from the program on this ceremony CD. The one other revelation for Barry was Heinrich Ignaz Franz Biber,
yeah.
which I started to be specializing in already, well, 10 years before I met you. And for you, that was a real revelation to discover him, and also his mystery sonatas and all the scordaturas, the 15 different scordaturas. And when you look at the program of this CD, it's fascinating. It starts with the Annunciation, so I mean, which we still use almost for every single duo concert. And you use the end of this sonata for Breathing Earth. I mean, Breathing Earth is completely based on this.
Yeah.
So basically, we have the Bieber theme running through this CD, and to this day, we're stuck to this. We always have Bieber in our duo recitals. I mean, without exception, I think. And of course, these days we always have Bach as well. So I think typical for us is that we manage to incorporate the Baroque aspects, but even transport them into the modern compositions.
Well, I thought when I first heard Meyer playing Bieber, that was the very first time I had heard even the name of the composer. I was amazed how modern the guy was.
Exactly.
And he
Avant-garde
somehow had this
avant-garde.
I mean, he had this incredible imagination, particularly in the realm of violin sonorities. Just by having these scordaturas, he could actually set up a particular mood, and also by the articulations, he could express this mood. And I found it totally revelatory, and we could be faithful to the composer's wishes, but at the same time say with the bass, with my 5 strings here, I could play some of the continuo parts which would normally be on the cembalo and cello, gamba, or with a harp sometimes as well, or theorbo. But it meant that with quite a simple language, a harmonic language, an unusual harmonic language, that some of these pieces, how many have we adapted? About 7 of them, about 6 or 7?
7 we can play as a duo. It was originally planned as a violin solo CD, and that was supposed to be recorded in St. Gerold, and we recorded away. And sadly, it got damper and damper. I can't remember, it was winter or something, and we're talking more than 20 years ago. I was also less experienced with dealing with the Baroque violin when it gets damp. And there was a moment when it came to recording the chaconne for the D minor, because that was supposed to be on the whole of the D minor partita, Bach's partita. And we abandoned that particular recording. What did we do in the church? We had already Celebration and Annunciation was recorded in the church.
Yes.
And Ceremony was supposed to be, on this anyway. And when it turned out that it's better to plan for a duo CD, you then wrote Immeasurable Sky, you wrote Breathing Earth and Ceremony, and Celebration was an offshoot of Ceremony. It was a big influence of Manfred to catapult us into this duo situation. And a great sign of trust of him to originally want a solo CD, which was a great honor for me, but it was very good retrospectively that it turned into duo CD. So that was a great factor of Manfred. And in Oslo we had a very interesting time doing the Ceremony.
Yes, because we had recorded the 7 tracks all the way through.
He wanted it more minimal.
So he started taking tracks out, obviously in a very professional way, as he heard the piece. But the problem for us in performance is that we have the 7-track backing tape, and it goes so minimal that in some places that we have played
it's not so easy.
It's very hard for Meyer, because you almost don't hear the links of the lines because they've got so
But it works on the
minimal.
CD.
On the CD it works fine. It's just hard in the playing context.
And it was a great CD to have for the duo in the first years, and
It's been
ever
great,
since
great,
it still sells surprisingly well at concerts. I mean, even if lots of people don't buy CDs anymore. And the folio, of course, we approached Manfred and he let us do everything. And Brian Lynch wrote the liner notes, didn't he? Yeah, I think it's Brian Lynch, yeah. So we also got the liner notes organized.
Have a look.
Let's have a look,
I haven't had this open for such a long time now.
And
Brian Lynch, you're right. This is one of our wonderful Irish writers.
so he let us be very, very free about the production, and he didn't, he was very encouraging. So we have great hopes that perhaps it would make logical sense if we did the next duo CD for ECM again, and we'll see about.
But in folio, it was interesting for me to contrast the two solo violinists, the Baroque violin against the modern
Amazing
violin,
piece.
modern setup. It was thrilling to hear the way that you two soloists negotiated your given sounds, and that was wonderful.
What's remarkable about folio, about this recording, is that it's the usual, we had quite a few hours of recording sessions with lots of retakes, as you do, and the expectation was to then cut it together and edit quite a lot. But at the very end of the sessions in this lovely church in Munich, the orchestra agreed, and Christoph agreed, and Manfred, everybody agreed to just do one more, just a complete version,
version, yeah.
almost like a live performance. And it's incredible to think that such a difficult piece, it's completely that recording, that live situation, and it's only about 2 or 3 tiny corrections. So that was an amazing experience to be able to put this piece down almost in one complete take.
That's right, that's right.
So, and I'm amazed as well that I didn't lose my nerve, and Muriel, it's so hard for the modern violin solo. And so you wrote Celebration as a little, almost like an offshoot of Ceremony.
And
it's a solo violin piece.
It's a solo violin
6
piece,
minutes.
and it was for at the particular occasion.
It's got the happy birthday.
It's got the
scene.
happy birthday tune in it somewhere.
Hidden.
Da da dee da dee da 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 dee da dee da. But you don't really notice it. Nobody ever notices it. But it was just a little hidden song for as my acknowledgement of the birthday situation. But it's not long. It's only a 6-minute piece.
Yeah, and for many years I played it mostly solo. Completely solo violin. But in recent years, well, I would say at least 10 years now or more. No more. Barry improvises when I play the solo part. So I have the music, and he has my music on his stand, but he improvises a totally new voice. So it's a piece which is wide open for an extra dimension.
So you, even though it's a sort of a solo violin piece, by adding this other voice and this other counterpoint, it gives a different kind of emphasis on the structure and some of the aspects of the articulations, and it also encourages Maya to perhaps play it in a different way.
Well, yes, and for me the fascinating thing, and this happens also in other pieces Barry has written in 2 other solo pieces, which I play with improvisation sometimes. It makes me feel as if I'm improvising, although I'm almost completely always playing the written notes, apart from 1 or 2 boxes where I'm allowed to go free. But when I'm playing Celebration together with you or percussion, I sort of go into a different, feeling of freedom, which is amazing, because you sort of feel as if you were an accomplished improviser, which I'm not. I'm a real visual person. I play you even a misprint that goes into, I play a misprint even if it's completely out of the range, because my fingers work visually quicker than my brain can hear.
But you play it artistically.
Yes, I would. But I'm a completely visual person, so for me it's wonderful to feel like an improviser. Yeah.
I know. I just wanted to. I wanted to do the semitone against it.
Yeah, it's good.
The C sharp against
Then
it. Then I thought I'd mix it up with that. There.
Anyway, there we are. That's it. Celebration.
All right, that's it. Celebration, Mark II.